The Raid World War II beta launched on the 1st of this month, and I was pretty darned excited to see what Lion Game Lion had been working on in the last few years. Did a 5-hour live stream the day the beta released, did about 9 hours more after that, and I think I'm ready to give a first impression of the beta so far. And that's the first point I want to make. This is a beta. I have been jaded over the years of big AAA studios releasing a beta around a month before the game launched and having no changes of note come in the 30 days following. I will say that I think it was at least a little bit brave of Lion Game Lion to have the very first that the public saw of their first full game release be a closed beta, not the finished product. From what I've seen from their live streams, it sounds like Ilya and the gang want to include us in the design process, and I appreciate that. With that in mind, what we see of the game so far is to be considered incomplete. My hope is that they'll take community concerns seriously, and it looks like they're making a good start of that. I have had some fairly glaring concerns the first day in, but on the second day of the beta, they made a bunch of balance changes that put my mind at ease. I'm writing this on the night of September 2nd, so if any big changes come out after I write this, it's obviously a dated product. With that being said, let's get started. There are 3 big questions that I see people having regarding the beta. They are, is this game fun? Is it different from Payday 2? And how? And should I pre-order it? As for the first question, yeah, it is fun. At this point in the beta, the guns feel tight and responsive, and the bad old Nazis are a consistent, serious threat. Where Payday 2 had a loose, skill-based system where you make your own builds, Raid is a strict class-based shooter with 4 classes: Recon, Demolitions, Insurgent, and Assault. It spells Raid. Each class gets its own set of weapons and its own war cry, as well as health, speed, and stamina differences. The war cries are the most important detail to discriminate for, as these are your team-based abilities, whereas the weapons are more a distinction of personal choice. I'll save a detailed class overview for a full review. As it stands, Recon snipes, Demolition shotguns and blows stuff up, Insurgent gets an SMG and a dodge ability, and Assault gets a semi-auto rifle and a healing ability. Now, as I discuss stuff in this video, I'm going to point out a few little details about the game that I think could be improved, and my first nitpick comes with the classes and the UI. It bothers me that when you're in the safe house, the one time you can change your class, you don't see the other players' classes, only their nationality. Nationality isn't gonna affect team composition. If I'm not in a voice chat with my fellow raiders, I need to know what classes they're playing so I can compliment them. Seems like a fairly easy fix to me, maybe an oversight since your class-appropriate warcry icons show when you have them charged. Anyhow, Assault and Insurgent have been my favorite classes to play so far. Assault's M1 carbine is a plucky, fast-firing rifle that's good at most ranges, and his warcry is probably the most useful overall. Nothing beats an instant heal at the touch of a button. The Insurgent Sten SMG clears Waffen like nobody's business, and seems like the best damage dealer in the beta. His warcry is somewhat less useful, but the dodge with the added Predator vision is pretty neat. Now, I mentioned that the beta has been updated since the first day, and Demolitions and Recon saw the biggest changes. Demolitions' Winchester M12 shotgun was pathetically weak against enemies at point-blank range. Full spread blasts to the chest were barely making a scratch and hard and above. You had to make headshots in order to do any damage, and that was somewhat counterintuitive for a shotgun in a video game. Recon was even worse. Headshots with the high-powered Springfield '08 sniper rifle didn't kill soldiers with helmets on. And what's the point of even bringing a sniper rifle if it can't kill with a headshot? Well, after the Day 2 balance patch, Demolitions and Recon are actually useful classes. Demolitions isn't going to clear every enemy with a single torso shot, but Nazis can't sponge up blast after blast anymore, and the shotgun is now the best choice for close quarters combat, as it should be. Recon's rebalance is even more satisfying. Headshots kill dudes. Jeez, finally. Chest shots have a good chance of an instant kill as well, depending on who you're shooting at, and the Springfield finally feels like where it should be for the rest of the game. Although, I shouldn't say that, since you can upgrade these guns. Having them be a little anemic at first isn't a bad thing when you're trying to look at the big picture. This is an inherently progression-based game. The starter weapons should be a little underpowered. When you do upgrade them, it gives you a sense of progressing, of being more powerful than when you started. To upgrade the guns, you complete these little challenges, getting a certain number of kills, or a certain number of kills while hip firing, or picking up a certain amount of ammo. then you can upgrade the gun, which changes its cosmetic appearance as well. However, even if you've completed the challenges, you can only upgrade the gun if you're at a certain level. The current level cap for the beta is at level 10, and this isn't a big issue unless you consider this beta to be a test as well as an item of advertising, which it is. As the beta is now, we can access all the tier 1 upgrades, but we would have to be level 15 to access the tier 2 ones. It's totally fine for Lion to keep some of the cool stuff up their sleeve, but as a critic, I really want to be able to access the mid-game and see how the balance changes over time. It could be that the M12 takes a little getting used to, and it's a little anemic to start off with, but once you put a few of those upgrades in, it becomes the best gun in the game. At this point, we're stuck with, it's a little anemic, and that makes the game look like the guns aren't up to the challenge. I wouldn't want to be in a position either where the early game weapons were changed so much to improve balance in the beta that by the time the game comes out, they're actually overpowered. In fact, I would highly recommend that before the beta is over to allow players to progress past level 15 or so. It would give us a chance to assess the mid-game balance and work out any potential kinks. I get that this would make the hard and very hard difficulties a lot easier, but that's what's going to happen in the full game anyway. Allow us to access the difficulty progression and work out the balance now so we don't have to in 2 months. That's the point of a beta, right? Now, as another side note, I actually take exception to this upgrade system as a whole. I feel like it's way too grindy to unlock upgrades this way. I would far rather you buy them with cash or gold bullion from particularly difficult missions your team accomplished. The way it is now, people are just putting the game in easy mode and spending an hour or so racking up 500 hipfire kills to unlock 5 extra stability for the carbine. It's too much grinding for something that could be accomplished a different way. Maybe, for example, have specific missions where you're just there to loot stuff, and the more crates of Nazi supplies you intercept, the better chance you have in an RG system which unlocks parts of upgrades. It would make sense for the setting for sure, and maybe give some maps a bit of repurposing. I don't know, just spitballing here. Didn't want to say this is poopy without offering a suggestion in return. The skill progression is also fairly mushy at this point, at least up to level 5. There were maybe 1 or 2 skills that I looked at and I said, whoa, I friggin' need that, like the classic extra ammo pickup, but then there are a ton of plus 10 movement speed while crouched and plus 5 movement speed while carrying stuff. You know, stuff that might actually be useful down the line, but right now I need pulse pounding excitement. Kind of feels bad that when I'm grinding up to a certain level and then the perk for that level is like plus 5 shoe polish. I don't care. I want to kill things better. Again, a higher level cap would help us determine whether or not the early game balance matched or accented the mid to late game balance. Now is a good time to talk about the difficulty in Raid, which probably answers the main portion of the question, is Raid like Payday 2? In terms of difficulty, no, it is far more difficult than Payday 2. More like how Payday the Heist was. This is for a few key reasons. For one, there's no regenerating health mechanics outside of the Assault's Warcry. Every single hit you take is going to put you further and further towards getting down. You have to find health kits in the field and manage what assets you have carefully. Of course, if you just have a team with 3 assaults, you could probably chain their war cries back to back and be just fine for health, and I would probably want to see a little bit of rebalancing to make this a little bit harder to do. The fact that all the ammo and health have to be sourced in the field makes you have to think more strategically and be more resourceful. Fortunately, the Jerrys have left boxes of supplies just lying around, and you'll flock to these to restock, some of them even having locks you have to quickly complete a lockpicking minigame to open. Hey, minigames for lockpicking. I like the cut of your jib. You can also grab supplies off dead Nazis, but not all of them drop things, like in Payday where all cops drop ammo. Sometimes the Nazis drop ammo, sometimes they drop health, but mostly they don't drop anything. You also can't just walk over supplies to grab them. You have to look down and press F, which makes looting more deliberate and more difficult to do while under fire. When you do go down, like in Payday 2, you're stuck in timeout and you have to wait to get back into the fight. Unlike in Payday 2, it's just a straight timer you have to wait out, which to me feels a little sloppy and unfinished. Payday 2's respawn system was actually quite remarkable. Trading hostages for your crew members back was really cool and actually fit with the setting. I don't see how you could do the same thing in Raid, however. I just don't see the Nazis trading back their POWs for captured troops behind their own lines. And if the implication is that you're just dead when you go down, that's even more out of place. Again, not sure exactly what to put here, but just a straight timer feels uninspired. The way it is now does make the harder missions harder. You have to hold out for 1.5 minutes on hard to get your teammate back, while 30 seconds is all that separates you from your downed comrades on easy. The 3 raids currently in the beta also involve a lot more movement. Hunters involves you moving between 3 small camps to eliminate their inhabitants, and Odin's Fall is a much larger level, seeing you enter a huge dirigible tower to sabotage the gas lines and blow up a giant war blimp. Trainyard is a more compact and vertical map, and that makes it look more static, but you're still running from one side to the other, blowing tracks, collecting gold, and in worst case scenario, just hunkering down to weather the onslaught. These raids are highly mobile. You're not sitting in one place for more than 1.5 minutes, and most of the objectives involve moving things from one place to another and then interacting with them. In contrast, the drills in Payday 2 at the best of times worked to drive tension. Can we pull this off? When are the cops coming? Come on, just 3 more minutes! Each of the areas in Payday maps became an arena in which to fight the police, and in some cases, depending on how well those areas were designed, it could become stagnant and repetitive, especially when the drills jammed, artificially increasing the already artificial time limit, keeping you in one area. In Raid, the constant movement creates action, far more similar to older shooters, and to Payday the Heist. Your own skill and knowledge of the area drives how long you stay there, and while there are some areas with artificial timers like the gas valves in Odin's Fall, there are often other elements like fixed gun emplacements to change up what would be a more standard hold the corridor arrangement. Switching gears slightly, one of the major standout elements which is at the same time similar and very different from Payday 2 is the stealth system. Just like in Payday, in both the Hunters and Odin's Fall raids, you start out the mission in stealth mode, and the entire mission can be stealthed to completion. When you get caught, the guards are alerted and the mission goes into loud mode. Your only stealth weapon is your knife at this point in the beta. You have to silently take out guards with it, skirt lines of sight, communicate with your teammates for simultaneous takedowns, all that cool co-op stealth stuff. But when you get detected, you can immediately switch to your fully loud appropriate weapons, keeping all the progress you made in stealth and making the following uphill battle that much easier. If you already picked the doors on the bunkers at the start of Odin's Fall, you don't have to grab the gas cans to blow it open. It's something that Payday 2 stealth lacks. When you're doing a stealth heist, you're kitted out fully for stealth. Your skill build is 100% stealth, and your weapons are 100% stealth, and if you get caught, you 100% restart. That's cool for a certain kind of stealth mission, the high-tension, all-or-nothing cat burglar kind. But for this kind of smash-and-grab, winner-takes-all, no-shortcut-too-short kind of stealth, I highly prefer this system. I wish that Payday 2 had something like it, like Payday the Heist did, and it's really cool to see its return in Raid. So when it comes to different upgrade methods for equipment, a far harder difficulty, a stricter class-oriented structure, and considerably different mission designs, Raid does stand out from Payday 2 in a number of ways. The ways it's similar are a bit more obvious. Raid is still using the diesel engine, and while it's pretty clear why they had to do this, diesel has a number of problems, some of them which have already been worked out in Payday 2, but aren't in Raid yet. The lighting and textures are fairly bland, and there are no facial animations. Objects and models look a little gross on close inspection, but I will say that Raid performs with the diesel engine very well. Overall, it's a better looking game than Payday 2, and it runs somewhat better as well, although there were moments when the game slowed down a bit, especially when the body count got high. You can notice a bunch of animations that the cops had in Payday 2, just swapped uniforms, and an almost comical lack of animations for changing weapons for the raiders, something that Payday 2 has already fixed. Now, people are calling Raid a glorified Payday 2 DLC, and I don't think that that's fair. It has a very clearly different design ethos, as well as functional differences within the game's mechanics. As someone who is damn near burned out on Payday 2, I would say it's different enough to be interesting, but similar enough to be familiar. Lions seem to be paying attention to what people are having problems with in the beta, and they're fixing them to the best of their ability. I think with a reactive and forthright community response to this beta, we should see a much better game on release. As to whether you pre-order it, I very rarely suggest people pre-order games. We don't see much during this beta, and even though we will be seeing a greater variety of maps during the course of the beta, as they switch some out for each other and maybe a bigger level cap, it is the changing spread of the balance mid to late game that concerns me. Many of the balance issues I see in the beta might not be issues if they correct themselves through further leveling and upgrading in the mid-game, but we can't judge that, and therefore cannot judge if the game is going to be balanced through the majority of our game time. As a piece of advertisement, the beta shows us just enough of its flaws to get people riled up, and not enough of what might be its strengths. I hope that more of these strengths are forthcoming. The whole beta period feels like a big event. Everyone is talking about it, and it's cool to see the community excited about something again. Or, you know, pissed off beyond all belief. We'll just have to see how the full game turns out, and I'll be there through the course of the beta to cover any changes Lion Game Mind might make, as well as the release of the full game on the 26th. Until then, I wish you adieu. Oh yeah, where are the French? We're playing as raiders deep behind enemy lines in Europe and we don't have a single French person? What the fuck? Worst game ever. 0 out of 10. Overkill are scamming bastards. I hope they die.
Nate, throw your grenades.
Wait, my life with the passion!
You have one shot.
Help! Gas canner to... Okay. Holy... How long, man?
This needs to be a highlighter.
Alright, I'm calling it. This is the end of the... Oh, fuck! Fuck you, bitch!
Oh my god! No!
Help me!
I'm panicking. Oh my god! Did you see the body float?
Oh my god! Holy...
Alright, that's
throw everything.
Guys, I'm in 30 seconds.
Holy...
This is gonna be a limbo effect. We're never gonna continue.
They're really pressing this. They're pressing this assault to try and get all of us.
Oh my god!
Oh my god, I don't have enough.
War cry, bitches!
8 seconds.
Out. Oh my... Dude, my war cry shows like 50 of them outside!
Oh my god, they just keep spawning. They won't stop coming in, they can't stop coming.
They literally...
Alright, I'm in.
Oh no! And they don't stop coming, and they don't stop coming, and they don't stop
Put him up.
I'm reviving. I got him.
Stop coming, and they don't stop.
Don't throw your nades.
Throw your nades! Throw your nades!
Everybody put your hands up in the air. Throw your grenades like you just don't care.
Oh my god! Throw those fucking nades!
Something else! Red Room, please let us out.
Oh no, another one! No!
There's 80 on the map.
I need another flag!
I need a flag. What is this difficulty spike? This is what we call a difficulty tweak.